Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Hebrews with Brady Randall.
Well, today and this week we're concluding the book of Hebrews with the final chapter 13. And let's remember what we've heard thus far. This is a letter of exhortation and encouragement and warning. In fact, in verse 22, he says, "Brothers and sisters, I urge you to bear with my word of exhortation, for I've written you quite briefly." The author has been pleading with them to remember Jesus, that Jesus is better by far. So don't turn back to Judaism or any other worldview or way of life. Keep your eyes on Jesus. And in this concluding chapter, he's going to remind them of some final encouragement and remarks. And so here's what we read in verses 1 through 3. "Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. Do not forget to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. Continue to remember those in prison, as if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated, as if you yourselves are suffering." So here he says, show hospitality to strangers and prisoners. And hospitality is an interesting concept. You notice it when you've been shown it at someone's house, maybe at a hotel, maybe when you're on vacation or in a restaurant, but you really notice it when you have not been shown hospitality. I'm not a frequent world traveler by any means, but in my opinion, traveling hospitality is at an all-time low. Flights are frequently changed without warning, travel plans are altered, and I often don't experience generous hospitality from those who are working there. I remember one time they flipped a flight the last minute, and I went up to the desk, and they could not have been more rude. And I just thought, this is just the norm. And I contrast that with the hospitality of my grandmother. My grandmother, for her entire life, has gone out of her way to make people feel welcome when they come into her home. Her house is always spick and span. She makes meals that are fit for a king, and then she just creates an atmosphere of relaxation and conversation. That, to me, is hospitality. But let me ask you, what would enable you to give that kind of hospitality to strangers and people in prison? In other words, maybe people you don't know. Well, for one, I think it's impossible to show hospitality to people that you don't know if you don't show it for people that you do know. That's why he starts by saying, keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. And this love and hospitality should therefore flow into caring for strangers. And hospitality in this culture was huge since travel was difficult and dangerous. You couldn't just stop in at a Holiday Inn at any given moment. People would have to take you in. And what he says is that by doing so, you may be showing hospitality with angels without even knowing it. And for the Hebrew Christians, remember, maybe you recall, Abraham would have been a huge hero to them. And Abraham and Sarah ended up hosting angels in Genesis 18. Now, how crazy is that? Acts of generosity and hospitality could be extended to strangers who actually could end up being angels right in your midst. You never know. But not only that, continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated as if you yourselves were suffering. So don't forget the lost and the least. Those that society has given up on, don't you give up on. Right now, there are around 2 million people who are currently incarcerated in the U.S. And though they are doing time for the crime, what an opportunity it might be when people are at their lowest point to be open to hearing the gospel, to be open to hearing how good Jesus is. And that, my friends, is the motivation for practicing hospitality to strangers or those who are in prison. Because when we were strangers, when we were at our lowest point, when we had broken God's law, that's when Jesus went after us. And if Jesus has not, then he does not give up on us. How could we give up on others? And maybe you feel like an outsider or a stranger to God today. But can I encourage you to keep your eyes on Jesus, who never stops pursuing you? And when you hit rock bottom, know that he is the rock on the bottom. He empowers those who have been changed by him to invest in others so that they might experience the same.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.